Hello. Hi, good evening, everyone. Hi, Ranjani. Hello, everyone. Thank you. Hi, Santosh. Thank you for joining this conversation. I have the privilege of being in conversation with Bharatanatyam artist Alarmel Valli this evening. Hello from Chennai. I'm waiting for Valli Akka to join. And I hope that she has seen me live, and I hope that she's going to join. Just give us a few minutes, please. So we're going to be talking about music, dance, musicality, and Alarmel Valli's music guru, T. Muktha Amma as she was known. Hi, Arvind. I am just waiting for Valli to join this conversation. I don't see Valli here, but let me look for her in case she has joined already. Invitation to join. If you just accept the invitation, then you will be live with me. Yes, there you are.
I tell you, I feel like such a dodo.
Oh my God, isn't it bizarre that we're both wearing black and red?
Oh, yes, of course. Like minds, thinking alike.
So thank you, Valli, firstly for accepting our invitation and, doing this on a medium that is really not your, most favorite.
I'm not comfortable with this at all. In fact, I was sitting here looking at the screen and you kept saying, "Where's Valli?" And I was saying, "Here I am." And you couldn't see me, so it was rather disconcerting. But I'm happy because you're the person asking the questions, and with you, I'm always comfortable. So even if
Thank you so
Instagram
much.
is not my medium,
Thank you so
I'm happy to be
much,
talking about
Valli.
music and
Valli,
Muktha
do
Amma.
you just want to check your Wi-Fi connection just to see, because there is a little break in while you're speaking. Do you just want to put your phone on airplane mode and just turn your Wi-Fi on?
Yes, my
That's
Wi-Fi
possible.
is on. My Wi-Fi
Oh,
is on.
okay.
So,
You're
yeah.
connected on Wi-Fi, right? Not
Yes,
on mobile
yes,
network.
on Wi-Fi. Is it? Can you hear me or no?
I can hear you.
Well,
Um,
there's a
it's
but.
a bit patchy, but it's okay right now. Yeah.
I'll try talking loudly.
Yeah, okay. Okay, Valli, so just to set the context for those who've joined now, is that we've been running a series called Music of Dance, Dance of Music. And to be really, really honest with you, every time, we've been featuring an artist, I have not stopped thinking about, how as a young journalist, I've interviewed you and how so many insights that you've shared with me have really shaped my understanding and appreciation of dance, music, poetry, musicality, all of this. So when we curated this series, I was waiting for the right moment to invite you to really, share your perspectives on music for dance, dance for music. So Valli, I want to start off really by asking you, when we say music of dance, dance of music, what comes to your mind, and why would you say that in the context of the arts, music and dance and poetry, of course, are sort of inextricably linked to each other?
Uh, is it music for dance and dance for music?
No, it's
Is
music
it
of
something
dance,
of
dance of music.
dance and dance? Because, well, this is something which I've always felt, that dance music and poetry, in my mind, there is no question, no doubt. It is in our tradition already, but in my experience, and I think through the decades, it is an awareness that has grown and deepened and intensified, which is that dance, music, and poetry are inseparably linked. In fact, I've always felt that in each of these, let's say dance, music, or poetry, there are elements of the other two. Because dance can definitely sing. You sing most, it's become a cliche today, singing with your body. Music can dance. It's a dance of the notes. And as for poetry, it is a choreographed dance of the syllables. There are cadences and tones which shift. And so it is music. You can't separate these. And so to be a dancer, particularly as a classical dancer, and you're dealing with poetry and with music, I think it's important to see it all as one, to experience it as one. And it doesn't always happen, but I think at its finest, at its best, dance happens, those wonderful moments happen when everything comes together and there is no separation.
Right. So beautifully said, Valli. Valli, I want to ask you a little bit about, you've been running this series, you've started this series on your Instagram handle, Co-Travelers. I was, really, really keen to listen to what you have to say about Muktha Amma, because you often talk about how she instilled in you, a love for music, the whole idea of musicality. So before we get into that, Valli, can you take us back in time and really share with us how classes with Muktha Amma were? Do you remember conversations you had with her, pieces that you learned from her, valuable lessons, and how were the classes really? Because in a world that is as chaotic as now, it's unimaginable what classes like that would have been. So it would be lovely to kind of go back in time and listen to your, your stories on that.
For me, my classes with Muktha Amma, the great blessing I had to go to her to study Padams and Javalis, it was one of the most important and transforming turning points in my life. I think I went to her when I was around 17 or 18, and after that for 12 years I was going continuously, and then life became too busy. In those days, Amma used to live in Indiranagar, in a gracious old house. And Kilpauk is this end of town. And you can imagine today, the idea of cutting across town would have been a nightmare. But that was Madras, old mellow Madras, when there were no, it was not the frenetic Chennai that it is with gridlock traffic and jams. So we used to go every Saturday and Sunday afternoons, were totally devoted to Amma's. I call Muktha Amma. Quite often there's a confusion because of my Amma and Muktha Amma. But they were unhurried, contemplative, immersive experiences, Akhila. It was, she'd be waiting there when we walked in. And that, I still remember that small, gracious, loving figure that she was. And in those days, there were not so many students coming in and out. So before me, the session was actually S. Soumya's. So she was only 14. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I can hear you, Valli. Are you able to hear me?
I can hear you well. I can hear you very well, but is there some problem with what I'm saying?
I am able to hear you, but I see that Rani Ramaswamy says that she can't hear you. Nobody else has said that. So I'm just... You
want to ask someone whether they can hear?
Yeah. Hi, Shruti. Can you just tell us if you can hear Valli clearly? Valli, could you just say a few words?
Can you hear me? Am I... is it coming out in fits and starts?
Yeah, we can hear you both. Harish says we can hear you both, Valli. Please go ahead.
Yeah. That's a relief. So as I said, it was a very leisurely process. And I still remember what an amazing musician Soumya was. She was only 14. And she would, Amma, after she left, would say, Patya, and the Behar Javali Vagaladile. Yenna Madri and the Briga Pota, Patya. Pramadama. I'd be learning it and it'll be such a hassle to reproduce anything close to that. So they were very happy days. And after class, Amma and Muktha Amma would settle down for Dabra coffee, Aapita Nidanama, and Amma would talk about the past. There'd be anecdotes about how she studied. There'd be anecdotes about, she'd make observations about life, about people. And she had a dry and wonderful wit, Akhila, but it was never cutting. So she was such a generous, giving, affectionate person. I was so blessed in my gurus to go with her and have her. I always feel that these moments of enrichment, which were not dance classes, and she certainly didn't spout theory, but just being with them, listening to them. And these anecdotes, you can imagine, they conjured a picture of lives of austerity, but completely with the tremendous sadhana. They were repositories of great traditions, these people like Amma, Muktha Amma. So, and their complete integrity was the bedrock on which they based their artistic tradition. Complete artistic integrity. And listening to Amma was often not just inspiring, it was epiphanic. I remember, they gave us, I feel she gave me a template, a way to crystallize a way of life, a philosophy of life. So a template on which you could base your own life to some measure, at least where the values were concerned. So it was something which I think enriched my life immeasurably. I am what I am because of my gurus and all that they gave me. Have you met her?
No, Valli, I did not have an opportunity to meet her, unfortunately.
We went to Singapore once and we went on a tour. Amma came with us for a holiday. And we were so happy. That was when, who was singing for me? Sudha Raghunathan sang for that tour in those days. And Amma, Muktha Amma had come. It was such a unique, magical experience. She had such enthusiasm for every little thing. And she gave generously, Akhila. They often say that people from that family don't give, but Amma gave wholeheartedly. And I like to share a story, an anecdote. Amma she said, Amma, can you teach Valli Varadirandal? Kanthimati Amman Pidamil. And she said, Yanakku theriyadu, but immediately she said, I'll ask Vishwa kete naan record pani. So she asked Vishwa sir. She recorded and gave me the music. That was her ability to, and her willingness to share and to give.
Right.
So was,
and Valli, I meant to ask you. Sorry, go ahead, please. Sorry.
No, I'm just saying, learning that Veena Dhanamal Vari, mellow, rich, measured. I consider her actually my Abhinaya Guru in many ways. Anyway,
I was going to ask you that,
You were saying something else.
No, I was actually, because you used the word unhurried, before I went into asking you about how her music influenced your dance and when did all these thoughts start crystallizing, I wanted to ask you, you used the word unhurried, Valli, and that Bani, the Veena Dhanamal Bani, is known for its sort of unhurried quality. I wanted to really ask you a little bit about the quality and the importance of that Bani, especially in the world that we live in.
What can I say? I'm not in any way, though I'm a student of that Bani and I love that Bani, and I think that, for me it is really a monumental style of music, and for dancers there is nothing like it. I remember that when I learned Kshetriya Padams from Amma, my first experience of the Kambodi Padam, Adiyokya Yugamu, it was something which I had never experienced before. I had studied music before, but nothing like this. It was so difficult. I used to sit and write 2.5, 1.5. Every word would fall on a different beat. 2.5, 1.5. And word to word, the way they said from word to word, it was so unpredictable. Completely. And that quality, I think, is so beautiful because it comes into dance, and that music, when you imbibe it, even if you can't sing it as, do justice to it, their style of music seeps into your very marrow. And something happened to me which was truly a revelation, a transformation, because I found my body responding in an instinctive way to the cadences, the curves, the pauses. I became much more aware of the pauses between notes, the spaces between words, the importance of the silences. And nothing was studied. It was not something which I thought consciously about. But particularly my abhinaya, it changed. And Arundhati Subramaniam describes that very beautifully. She calls it dynamic listening. I actually realized that dance is not just depicting, or abhinaya is not just depicting a narrative. It's not just telling a story with the right habitats and with the right, the kulukanadai and the stylization. But it is about allowing the entire body to listen to that music. And then what emerges is something very different. You feel as though, for me, it was, I won't even say discovery, but it was a moment, it was epiphanic. And it was a moment when my entire approach to dance, to abhinaya in particular, was transformed. Completely transformed. The Angika Abhinaya aspect increased. And not only that, when I started doing those padams and javalis, I found that it was not just the layer of meaning, because at one level you are interpreting the meaning, but simultaneously you are interpreting the music, which is not a literal thing, because often today musicality, we talk about, the musician follows you. If there's a poignant moment, she's poignant. If it goes up, the music notes so, and so on. That is at a linear level. But at another level, it is like being aware of a different plane of a dimension, a different wavelength altogether of a way of expression that exists at a wavelength which I was not aware existed until I started studying with Muktha Amma.
Fantastic.
So I am thrice blessed.
Right. And Valli, perhaps you may have answered this question, but really, did this happen organically over time? Like, even now you continue to think of, her influence in your dance. Do you feel like with time and over decades of dancing, this has become, such an intrinsic part of your dance itself, which is why, you often talk about see the music, hear the dance, which you've really made your own. So I just want to, ask you a little bit about how this process, how did this music and musicality really seep into your dance? Did it happen over time, over years of contemplation, introspection, and therefore also in a certain way, did it become better and mature over time?
Lots of questions in one, Akhila, and you've asked me so many things now. My mind is like a beehive at the moment. I have to now hone in on what the essence of what you have perhaps asked me.
Right.
Let me take one thing at a time.
Right.
I would like to say that this word musicality is something which is now in vogue. It's being used a lot.
Yeah.
When I was young and in those days, it was another era, neither our gurus, I didn't know the word existed until in my teens I read George Balanchine mentions dance as visual music, and the idea appealed to my imagination.
Yeah.
But I had no idea what musicality meant. No, it was an experience. It was not something that we thought about. The guru said, be musical. No, it was something that was an intrinsic part of dance, which we took for granted. And maybe, people of my generation, the older dancers also would feel that way, that dance and music went hand in hand. There was no question. And that it was something which we experienced. But my first experience of this dimension, which I didn't recognize as anything, because as I said, I didn't even know the word, was when I saw Balama, and I've spoken about this so often, but I hope I can say this again, because that was another epiphanic moment for me. Seeing Balama dance at the Music Academy, I was 15 at the time. She had received her Sangeeta Kalanidhi. And that was a performance which was a historic performance. What is etched indelibly in my mind, in that callow mind of a 15-year-old, was Balama doing Unnai Thudanipine. There is this padam where she says, I sent you, she tells the friend, I sent you with a message. What has passed between you and him, that your hair which is combed is now disheveled, and you come back with all the signs. So just one phrase, Vari Mudinda Kundal, just that where the combed hair which was knotted up, the myriad ways and the colors which she brought to her evocation as she sang first at the mic, and then she went and danced. But I remember her standing and singing, and Akhila, honestly, again I say 15 is a very, you're immature, you don't understand anything in life. And for me, at one point, phrase after phrase, there was image after image would follow, and the way she combed her hair, knotted it, unraveled it. At one point for me, everything became one. What I was talking about earlier, where there was no separation in my mind between the music and the dance, nor even between the music and the text, and between the dance and the dancer. She made you forget it all. And I didn't realize what I was actually experiencing, but for those moments, I was totally riveted. I came back very, very moved, excited, inspired. But for me, she epitomizes what I have always spoken about, the coming together of the poetry of word, melody, and movement, which is what musicality and poetry of dance is all about. She epitomized that. And when I came to Muktha Amma, again, I'm going on at length. Would you like?
No, please go ahead, Valli. Yeah, please go ahead. Yeah.
I heard her saying, Amma also heard her saying, my mother, saying, Abhinaya solli kodukka mudiyadu, thana varanam. It can't be taught. It has to flower on its own. Those days we never understood. It was only after coming to Muktha Amma that, as I said, that revelation happened, and suddenly it was, like in the Lord of the Rings, that moment when they're standing and they're trying to open the minds of Moria. Of course, Moria is a bad example to give, but this was opening up. It gave me the key to a magic world, a world where I really felt that dance had become my natural medium, as natural as the rhythms of breathing. I tell my students, finally, Abhinaya has to become, without compromising the hastas and all that, as natural as the cadences of speech. you know, we talk without thinking, don't we?
Absolutely.
So when we dance, then the music and the poetry and the dance come together, then you really feel that, you know, it's as natural as breathing. And I honestly felt like that after studying Abhinaya with Muktha Amma. And that's how I kind of came up with, you know, I say
Oh.
ideal.
Yeah.
See the music, hear the dance.
Right. But Valli, this happens over time, and there's so much rigor, right, that is needed for this to happen.
Rigor? As in?
As
You
in,
mean the
obviously, you've
sadhana?
soaked in it, you've immersed in it, you have internalized it, so much so that it's almost seeped into your veins, right?
It has to, I think any dancer has to immerse so completely that I think it's an immersive process for all of us as dancers. Uh, you're talking about the discipline that goes into it, or
Yeah, the discipline, right? You internalize it, you go over it,
so
you know.
are you do you want me to talk about how one kind of hones oneself, or how one
Absolutely. How,
aspires
yeah, how
to
does one make it their
ideal?
own, right? Yeah, how does one make it their own? All of these different, influences, and this whole idea of musicality that you talked about. How does one really internalize it in a way that it really becomes their own, right?
One thing I want to say, you remember what I've said about see the music, hear the dance. One of the things which, it's also what you read that influences how you perceive things. Eduard Hanslick, a famous German critic, he speaks of music as form moving in sounds. And at that time, it occurred to me, because I was working with Muktha Amma, by the same token, dance is sound moving in forms, which is why it occurred to me. You know, you'd once asked me, why see the music, hear the dance?
That's right.
But, you know, I don't know exactly how to define musicality, Akhila, because it belongs to the realms of subtext. It's not about linear geometry.
Yeah.
It is not about sensational physicality. It's not about perfect technique even. It's in the realms of subtexts, of suggestion. It might be, you know, after studying with Amma, I found that the punctuation in the songs, because there are moments in the music which are, you know, where a word has a particular stress. Those became natural, and I found my body responding to those punctuations. It is the flick of your wrist at a particular point. It's the timing with which the eye moves. It is the curve of the body. If it's, let's say, like Chanaro Kamas, that amazingly beautiful Javali, which is the very essence of Shringara Rasa. So then the body moves in a particular way. It is all this. But I would like to say that it is something, it is a quality which I feel all of us possess in some measure. The intensity, the degree of it might vary from person to person. But just saying musicality, and you know, you get a wonderful musician to compose something for you, or you take up a marvelous poem, an absolutely beautiful poem, and you try to set it to dance. I think that is not necessarily, in my mind, musicality or
Right.
poetry.
Right.
I think, I'll tell you, for me, dance is a language. So I think it's vitally important to learn to use a language beautifully, to craft language. I'll tell you why. There is music in words. My mother when I was very young, I used to read very fast. And then she caught me, she pulled that book and she gave me a notebook and said, start writing down phrases, imagery, metaphors, make them your own, because later on, your language will be richer, you will be the better for it. Style is the man. You might wonder what and she used to tell me, write letters like this. It used to be such a headache writing a letter to anybody, because Amma will say, have you started it the right way? Have you introduced the body of it? How have you concluded it? So these lessons in essay writing, what does it have to do with dance? I think it has a great deal, because in the first place, between her and my grandmother, grandfather, maternal grandfather, who used to read a lot of poetry to me, they sensitized me to the music of language, the music of words, so that I was able to recognize shifts in tone in poetry. Because Arundhati often says, Arundhati Subramanian, the eminent poet writing in English, she often says that you have to know how to read a poem. Even that is something which you have to access the right way. So when this happened, for me, choreography, these lessons in essay writing are what stand me in good stead when I choreograph. And speaking of the music of language, when we choreograph as dancers, there is the music of the poem. So how do you do justice? You are not just translating the story. You're not transliterating. You're not translating. You're not just interpreting. You are interpreting it in a way where you're equally interpreting the music of the language as you are the words. The Vadyakaras and the poets who wrote Padams and Javalis, the composers, they knew that art so well. That is why these Padams and Javalis, the music is even more evocative than the words sometimes. But if we take up, let's say, a Sangam poem, and I'm composing it, I'm working with my musician, unless I understand the music of the language, for instance, in one Kuruntogai poem, Siraipani, which you have also seen, desolation, and this weather echoes is actually a mirror of mood. She says, "Udai thutrum kudir yamatted." The fierce winds, the howling winds and the scattering spray. In that wind, that silent sound of the bell, which she hears. And that accentuates her loneliness, her sense of desolation. When I worked with Prema, she had so beautifully composed it. I asked her for B Swara, and I said, I want silences. But she also used the words so that the ooh, they toot, coo, the howling wind, it came through in the music. So there are layers. There is the layer of the word, there is the layer of the music, and then there is the layer of the dance. So then the three come together. So that's why I tell my students, please, don't just think I'm going to choreograph something, so I picked up a poem to read or I read. Just immerse yourself in poetry and literature, in the thoughts and the voices of great people, because then your capacity with dance will be enriched. Sorry, I've gone on at length about it.
No, that's okay, Valli. I was going to ask you a little bit about, I wanted to ask you a question really about, when you work on a production, I know that you work very, very closely with your musicians, right? Would you just like to, I know it's difficult for you to sort of distill it all, but is there a way that you could talk about, how by virtue of these learnings, you're so closely involved with the music, right, when you're choreographing work? And could you talk to us, because I know that your musicians do spend a lot of time with you and you're really, really very closely involved with the music, unlike, in today's world, otherwise one is also constantly grappling with yeah, lack of enough time for rehearsals and stuff like that. So could you elaborate a bit about how closely you work and how that really, really matters to the way the production finally shapes up?
Akhila, you said something which hurts me deeply, and I think my heart goes out to dancers in this generation, because the greatest joy is to be able to work with the musicians to the point where you're both flowing on the same stream of consciousness. And that is so vital, Akhila. I've had Prema Ramamurthy, later on Rajkumar Bharti, amazing musicians. And with Prema, she would sing one line. I'd make her sing, actually. I said, Prema, idu innor ragathil paadunga. You sing it in 5 different ragas. And then I'll decide on what ragas I want. First, I'd break the poem into different scenes. And then she would go away upstairs to the drawing room. She'd shut herself up all day and she'd come back with one verse. She'd take about 3 days. And in the process, I tell her, I need I think a tisra nadai there would work. Or if there is a crab scene, where there's another Sangatamil piece, ravenous crab, she compares herself to a single fig, fallen fig, Attiparam, it's torn to pieces by these crabs, the tongues of people who crush her like a stone. That's another wonderful point. But I remember she created these movements of the crab in the swaras. And I use the same swaras later on when there are people gossiping, the whole idea of social criticism and carping that can hurt bitterly someone who's already hurt. So I use that same swara there. And for instance, Rajkumar Bharati composed Pushpa Vilapam, which is one of the last pieces. But I can't tell you the number of changes that took place. We opened with an idea that, since it's flowers, I said, Rajkumar, can you please give me? Incidentally, I've known him since I was 15. So he's somebody who's very dear to me. So I said, can you give me a flower swaram, something like in a garden? Then everything changed later on, that I didn't feel like opening it like that. So as the song changes, then the ragam itself changed. From Malay Marutam, it became Natakuranji, because it had to have something deeper. And Annamacharya, for instance, the thing is that sometimes even before the music is set, the song flows in a particular beat, because I have to think of ideas before I discuss it with the musician. There was a piece, Elina Vadu Tanu, Ye Managalad Nenu, very exultant Alamelu Manga. And even before Prema came into the picture, because I was busy with some editing, for me it kept running in my mind in Bihag. Don't ask me why. I was singing it. And in Misra Chapu. So she set it in Tilang. Then I told her, Prema, it's in my mind in Bihag. Can you please set it in that? Though it's not a traditional raga for Kshetriya music. But then it worked that way. Afterwards, she would adapt what I wanted. Then I said, make it Tisra Nadai for all the, from Misra Chapu to Tisra Nadai and then back again. So there's so much of work that goes in. Then the musicians come into the picture.
Give and take, yeah.
Murali Parthasarathy, 15 days I have done Kapi Varnam with him. Because I want, everyone on the same, not just page, same stream of consciousness. So it is such a joy, whether it is Prema Ramamurthy, Lata Ramchand, Savita Narasimhan, later on Nandini Anand, Ravi. All of them, I have been fortunate, Murali Parthasarathy, have worked and worked. Then where you want the BGM. So every piece, there is so much of shaping, what is first born and what emerges. Sometimes, that inception to that final stage conception to the final stage is very, very different. It's exciting. So finally, when you present that piece, it is as much yours as it is the composer's. And they are as much a part of that process of the dance, the musicians, the orchestra members. That's one reason why I'm finding it very difficult now. Nobody wants to sing for me because there's a lot of rehearsal involved. So it's,
I know, Valli, that's probably why, you know, they're all in some sense your co-travelers, right? Because they've been equally invested in your journey as much as
they have given, which is why when I was so happy about the idea of honoring and celebrating people who have made me who I am, musicians who have given me so much. I can't tell you how much of commitment I have had from Indira Rajan for Natyavangam, my Vasudevan for Natyavangam, Shaktivel Muruganandam, those days Srinivasan, all of them, KP Nandini for these days, violin, Shruti Sagar, all of them. Today, of course, everyone is fearfully busy. But in the past, I was fortunate to belong to an era when musicians were able to work and enter into the spirit of what you were doing.
I know. I was going to ask you a slightly controversial question and say, Valli, don't you think you're lucky and privileged to have been part of a different world? Because this world is really, really so just the opposite of unhurried.
It's not controversial. I've said it very often. It's true. It's a fact. I consider myself blessed to have been born into an era when we didn't have the tyranny and the cacophony of television, smartphones, and social media. Forgive me, due respect to Instagram, which is making this possible. And I am very grateful, particularly during COVID. But Akhila, yesterday I was talking to my student about it's become such a pain. You look at the phone and constantly you are distracted by trivialities. So time to dream, time to immerse yourself in whatever it is, a poem or a line, time without these distractions, and when ideas flow, when the imagination can run riot. I had no distractions. So I was able, I consider it my creative salvation to have been born into a time without smartphones or social media. That really, and you didn't think, how many views does this have? There wasn't that pressure also to survive in a very market-driven world. So you grew at your pace. You were allowed to grow at your pace. And I think it's important even today, though it is extremely difficult. I used to say in those days, we are one-woman acts. Dancers had no managers, no lighting designers, no nothing. We have to do it. Today, it's even more of a challenge because there are so many, you're being tugged in so many directions. But I think if you're talking about musicality and if you're talking about poetry, and if you genuinely, any dancer who wants not a linear interpretation of these things, but the genuine thing, if they want to absorb, they have to carve little islands of quiet for themselves. I think it is possible if we declutter a little some of the things which I'm thinking I have to do it, because it's really a pain. And it's like steeping of pickles, the manga in the brine or the lime. Unless it's perfectly steeped, you can't make good pickle about it. Then there is the seasoning and the right amount of, the spice and the perangayam or whatever you put into the pickle. So I think musicality and poetry are like that, like steeping pickle. We dancers have to steep, we have to immerse ourselves, and we have to open ourselves, not just listen to great music, but read great literature, watch great dancing, watch great theater, cinema. All these streams feed these springs of imagination, and you steep and you become good pickle. Hopefully.
So that's such a fantastic metaphor, Valli, and I can't not remember Auntie when you speak about this, and also because you talked about how she instilled in you, you know, the importance of essay writing, of writing letters, the beginning, the end, the middle, all of this, right? I just was going to ask you a final question about, you know, your one last word of advice for young dancers, many of who are listening now and who will listen to this later, really about this pursuit of finding the music in dance and finding the dance in music. If you can just leave us with that one last word, I think it'll be lovely, Valli. It'll be a befitting end to this conversation.
I'm not very good at giving advice, Akhila, and I won't presume, because they have challenges, the younger generation, which
Absolutely.
I know by hearsay, but I know that it's tremendously challenging. But I see so much of talent, so much of brilliant talent, and it's true that sometimes I look and I say, oh, such talent there. I wish they could see there is another dimension beyond the, you know, the sensational, the physical, or the theatrical. What advice can I give? I think I've already been talking at length about it. I know that social media is important. I know that we live in a world of technology. If otherwise we'd be wiped out of the dance world. But I think it's important to prioritize and to make, as I said, carve out spaces and periods of time when you can focus on this immersion and steeping in literature, in music, in enrichment, so that one's discernment, if you're exposed to something which is good, even that's difficult, because how do you know what is good and what is false?
Yeah.
There's too much information. Yeah, what do you do? But I think, you know, in literature, you have great minds, so you're not wrong. You can't go wrong there. And before we come to, you know, selection of, let's say, modern poetry, let us go make it a journey from one to the other. I am still traveling. That's why co-travelers, and I definitely feel that I'm still steeping. There's so much I learn each piece. So another thing is that I think that because there is so much of YouTube and so many dance forms or formulae or representations of dance, that I think it's very easy to allow your convictions to be swayed. It's very difficult to have strength of conviction in something. So I think one has to start out and not start getting too fizzy-paras, looking around saying, oh, let me take something from there, then something from there, third thing from the some other dancer, fourth. If you can, and that also is not easy because you have to find a good guru. It boils down to that. If you can, and you some gurus, good gurus or a good guru, and if you can root yourself, moor yourself, anchor yourself in that, and then slowly absorb, I think, and if you read a lot of poetry, not just because you want to find a poem to choreograph, but because you want to hone your ability to listen to the music of language. Music, of course, I take it for granted. No dancer is a complete dancer without a study of music. That is, I'm taking it for granted. You can be
Yeah.
a brilliant success, but are you complete with all the
Yeah.
dimensions is a moot point, in my view.
Yeah.
But I think that if people could read more, I think all the good dancers do, but everybody, as a means of developing this innate musicality, which all of us possess, but we need to hone, which we need to intensify.
Mm.
Not everybody can have a Muktha Amma as a teacher, but why not listen to a lot of Padams and Javli? There's so many things on YouTube. That's one of the great advantages. Listen to these slow, mellow, deep, emotionally complex pieces. And even if you choose to do something that's very different, as I have done, still you have the highest ideal to look up to. You have to set those standards, some benchmarks, which you can look up to, and then keep steeping. It's a lifelong process of immersion. It won't happen overnight. But if you're young, you have your life ahead of you. And I think this is an important aspect of a dancer's life.
No. Thank you so much, Valli. I just want to say two things before, we wrap this conversation. One is just to say that I continue to be really besotted with everything that you say. And even though I'm not a dancer, I'm always so inspired because I feel that so many things that you speak about apply, are, really, I think any person who's in the creative space must aspire to those values. So thank you for, sharing and sharing so generously. Surely your gurus have instilled that quality in you as well. So thank you for sharing your...
Akhila, but may I say something? This is not, you said this to me and I said this. It's not that kind of thing. But honestly, talking, I've known you since you were in your 20s, and you have done so many interviews, and always what for me makes me talk so comfortably is the fact that not only are you sensitively, you are discerning, you understand where I'm coming from, and you also have great sympathy for dancers and musicians. So you have a very open mind and heart. So talking to you is really a pleasure, and I mean it. Thank you, and I must thank everybody. I don't know who's here because I really don't know these phone things.
Yeah, there are a lot of people, and there will be a lot of people who will listen to this conversation later, Valli. But also, I want to tell you that there are so many stories I'm sure you have, collected in your journey. So please do share them with all of us, because they're really, really going to be extremely valuable for future generations. So I really, really urge you to have more conversations with me and with other people so that we get to listen to these priceless stories and really go back and carve out spaces where we can let influences, inspiration, immersion, all of these happen.
No, I certainly feel at this point in my life that I want to celebrate those who have traveled with me, and that's why you suggested the co-travelers series, which I was so keen on. I would like to talk about my masters, about Prema Ramamurthy, for instance, Shobhana Swami, who was such a remarkable Natyavinak. Many, many people, and all of them have something to say. Their voices, even if not directly, some of them are no more. Through me, I'd like to share some of what I have gained. And it's a point in my journey where I would like to share more.
So thank you so much, Valli. Thank you. It was a very, very, very wonderful conversation. Thank you so much for taking time out and for accepting to do this. I know that you were a bit hesitant because it was Instagram, but I'm so glad that you came live so early. It's a piece of cake.
No, not really, but thank you. I'm learning. I'm a novice. I'm learning about, things like
You're a very fast learner, Valli. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.